I'm here to talk to you about the recent establishment of the Young Onset Parkinson's Disease Support Group for this region, which has been supported by Parkinson's ACT. Soon after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's at 46, I'd decided to have a look at what a support group could offer me. I attended one of the monthly meetings offered by PACT, but after only one meeting I decided that this type of support group was not my thing. I proceeded to go about managing my life with this new diagnosis in my own way. I did lots of research and reading, informing myself about what I was facing, and got on with life. The most important thing for me at the time was to increase my level of physical activity, which you saw today, research has shown can contribute to a delay in progression of the disease. I continued to do everyday physical activity things that I was doing, such as playing and coaching baseball. And I jumped into the deep end in terms of something new with exercise. I took up Taekwondo. The benefits of martial arts are numerous. It can be extremely vigorous exercise. It is symmetrical, which is important for somebody with a weakening left side. It is mentally challenging, and it is another opportunity to engage socially. But I avoided other people living with Parkinson's. I guess subconsciously I did not want to see what I was going to become. I just wanted to do my own thing. And I think this was important for my state of mind at the time. And this was compounded by the fact that my mum, who is here today, also has Parkinson's. So during that first few months after diagnosis, I dealt with a couple of other negative experiences which drove me further into persisting on my own. I won't go into the details, but I felt that I was better off on my own, doing my own things. I did establish a large network of professionals to assist me in dealing with the disease, and I will be forever grateful to my physiotherapist for physically getting me back on track over the course of 6 months after my diagnosis. So with the research, seeking the right advice and establishing an extensive support team, I essentially developed my own pathway in coming to terms with and managing my Parkinson's disease. And just as a side note, that pathway doesn't exist for many of us, particularly young onset people. I'm now advocating for the development of a pathway for newly diagnosed people so they can follow the steps rather than having to find their own way in the dark. So the introvert part of me was happy with the direction I was taking. However, the extrovert part of me wanted more. I've typically been a gregarious type of person, always willing to have a chat and a laugh, and I've always been willing to help other people. So I'm now in a position to be able to share my experiences over the last 3.5 years since diagnosis with other people living with Parkinson's. I've made a few good friends along the way, which is always wonderful. And I've been able to provide advice to several people, including the sometimes excruciating NDIS process. More recently, I've been essentially mentoring a person diagnosed earlier this year at the age of 32. So I wondered how many other people my age were dealing with the circumstances that I was dealing with. So typically young onset people are of working age with careers to consider. And when you're in your 40s and your 50s, often your career is probably the most stressful time of your working career. Young onset people may have young children at home and may have significant debts like mortgages on their homes. Many of us lead full and active lives, travelling, playing sport, and involved in community activities. And just as another side note, I'll give you a small example of what it means sometimes in a practical sense for young onset people. I had to take a day's recreation leave from work to be here today. I know that's hard. And I know that some people are unable to come today because they are working. So I figured that according to the statistics, there must be other young onset people in the community. I think Steve was talking about some statistics recently. I think there's 1,500 people in this region with Parkinson's. So there must be anywhere up to 300 people with young onset Parkinson's. Even conservatively, 100 would be a conservative estimate. and I know of about 12. So I just had to work out how to find them. And also had to consider whether they actually wanted to be found. Maybe they were all like me and just wanted to do their own thing. During my research, I stumbled upon a couple of groups focused on young onset people, one based in Brisbane and one based in Melbourne. The groups are called Young at Park, which is a wordplay on Young at Heart. The Brisbane group meets monthly, alternating between a Monday night dinner with a guest speaker and a Friday lunch with table games and conversation. The Melbourne group meets once a month at a pub in South Melbourne, just for a meal, with families encouraged to come along. Further to this, Parkinson's Victoria holds a conference every 2 years specifically for young onset people. I attended this last year and thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to meet and share experiences with people of a similar age. So I asked myself, why don't we have this sort of thing in Canberra? Well, I figured that it was never going to just magically happen, so maybe I could do it. I went to a Parkinson's ACT AGM, again during work hours, and put a proposal to the committee to establish a young onset support group. The committee is very supportive of the initiative, which I appreciate greatly. At this point, I'd also become friends with Kristen Pratt, our Nordic walking guru, and recently appointed to the committee. She's been very supportive in my endeavours to get a group off the ground, has been full of great ideas. We set up the Young at Park Facebook page, set up a Gmail account, and started to put the word out that the group had formed. I think we have 12 people on the page, so it's still early days. We've met twice, with a very small number of us coming along each time. As I said to you before, as you could possibly understand, there are a lot of people that are in the position I was in just after I was diagnosed. So perhaps they want to be by themselves and find their own way. So with that in mind, I want this support group to be different to the average group. Although I see the immense value in the dancing and painting support groups, they are just not for people like me. I'd rather be at Taekwondo training kicking the stuffing out of one of the padded towers, or maybe down at the baseball field hitting a crate load of baseballs in the batting cage. One of our group who is here today is into downhill mountain biking. Another of our group is right into his four-wheel driving trips around the country. I don't want to meet in a community facility under fluorescent lights. I want us to meet informally, socially, with no agenda, no guest speakers, somewhere comfortable and welcoming. I simply want an opportunity for people in the same situation to get together and share experiences, just as our previous two speakers have talked about. It's through the sharing of experiences that one can learn little bits and pieces from each other about how they manage with what they've got. As I said, it's early days, but we will get there. So tomorrow, the Young at Park Canberra group is hosting a side event, backing onto today's seminar. Julie Davey, who we're presenting to you all this afternoon, will run a two-hour workshop on exercise aimed specifically at young people living with Parkinson's. We are grateful to the PACT committee for supporting this initiative, and that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for listening.